Okay, folks. So about, I think we've seen about 4,000 stolen vehicles in this city this year. I think all too often our officers are being put into harm's way as we attempt to interact with some of these vehicles. Just today alone, we saw 3 such events where we've uncovered loaded firearms and drugs in vehicles, and they're becoming incredibly chaotic events. I'm very proud of the way our members handle these on a day-to-day basis, but today is one of those situations again where we were forced to get in a position to use our firearms in a vehicle stop. So I'll read you what happened here and I'll answer any questions I can. So today the Alberta Serious Incident Response Team has been called in following an officer-involved shooting in the Dover area early this evening. Just before 7 p.m. Thursday, November 3rd, patrol members in District 4 observed a stolen vehicle traveling in the area of 30th Avenue and 36th Street Northeast. HAWCS was called in to assist. As patrol members were awaiting the arrival of HAWCS, the stolen vehicle pulled into a back alley in the 3800 block of 30th Avenue, where a marked police vehicle pulled into the alley and the stolen Civic pulled over. Patrol members exited their vehicles and approached the Civic, at which time a series of events occurred that resulted in one police officer being dragged by the vehicle. A second officer, a 3-year member of the Calgary Police Service, discharged their service-issued firearm, striking the driver of the stolen vehicle. The officer who was dragged by the vehicle, also a 3-year member of the service, was taken to hospital with what is believed to be minor injuries. The driver of the stolen vehicle, a 21-year-old man, was transported to hospital in serious but non-life-threatening condition. And to that, I'll take any questions I can.
Can you talk to us about how many rounds were discharged?
That'll, again, ASIRT will probably deal with that, but I'm not sure at this time. So.
It's another police-involved shooting. I think, if I remember the numbers right, we're at, and this is the 8th ASIRT investigation this year. I might be wrong. I know I've got the numbers at my desk, but it's obviously a big spike. What do you account for this? You know what?
The city's experiencing a crime trends associated to these difficult illegal drugs. We're seeing weapons. Again, like I said today, this is the 3rd one today where we've stopped cars. We found loaded shotguns, .357 Magnums, drugs. So as our members exhaust themselves almost on a nightly basis now trying to find ways to stop these vehicles, to create safety for both the drivers of the vehicles, our members, and the public. And today's one of those situations that resulted in injuries to our officers and injury to the driver of this vehicle. So.
I think we all probably heard the scanner chatter. I mean, what goes through an officer's mind, your mind, when you hear that panic in a code 200?
You know what? These things happen so fast, and again, unfortunately, we've become all too accustomed to the fact that these things can happen and are happening more often than we'd like to see them happen. This year is a good example of just how many chaotic events our officers are getting involved in because of this this sort of wave of criminality we're seeing.
Was the man taken to hospital known to police?
I believe so, yes.
What happens right now to the officers involved? One's obviously in the hospital, but moving forward, they don't go back to work for a little while, I assume?
No, officers generally involved in these sort of critical events will be given a period of rest and recovery before they're returned back to the workplace.
This happened in an area like next to a playground. Is that like just disturbing that something like this would start with a situation like this?
That's the challenge we're dealing with. Is it can happen anywhere. You're right. I mean, this happened in a residential neighborhood. There seems to be no regard for property or life, and then the fact that they're targeting our officers at the times to do this, there's just no regard at all for the safety of anybody. So this, again, it's very difficult. Our members do an incredibly good job on a nightly basis. The things that the public doesn't see is just how hard we have to work to try to find a safe resolution to these events. But tonight was a night where it ended in a shooting, unfortunately.
What's your role now that ASIRT has taken over?
You know what, ASIRT will handle this going forward. My role really will be, to talk to the membership, make sure the membership knows they're supported. I'll go, I'll meet with the officers that are involved and see how they're doing. But arguably speaking, we will make sure we move on and are prepared to go out to our next shift.
Is it a different mindset going through like the force right now, considering like crime is almost up on like a lot of sectors right now, and instances like this are up?
You know what, it just really highlights the need for a professional service to make sure that our members are prepared each and every night, they're rested and ready to go. And you know what, it's still, like I said, Calgary still remains to be a very safe city. It's just that these events are starting to happen more often, and something we're prepared for, but it's difficult. So.
Do you think this could be the new normal?
No, you hope not, but like I said, I've watched these calls every night, and the things that the public doesn't see, the things we don't often get a chance to share, is just how many resources we're bringing to bear and how many new tactics we're trying to come up with to find ways to deal with these vehicles in a way that nobody gets hurt, like not one person gets injured, and we're successful most every night. But here's a night where quite a bit of chaos occurs and people are hurt.
Recent homicides and police activity and certain things, it seems gang related or it looks gang related. Are we getting back into gang issues here in the city?
Oh, you know what, gang issues never go away. I mean, when you don't see them very often, it's not because they're not there, it's often because, you know, there's been some destabilization or there's something else going on, but we know they're here all the time. I talked to some officers today who are still dealing with members on a regular basis, these gang members. They just don't, we're not seeing them in terms of the violent activity right now, but something we stay on top of. There's no reason to believe in this case, I have no evidence in this one at all that there's any gang relation to this, but you know, we'll find that out later probably if there was or wasn't. So.
And what do you say to people, I mean, we're seeing the ASIRT numbers even come across our desk questioning about the use of force. Like, I mean, because you look at, I think it's 7 or 8 this year, was only 3 or 4 last year, and I think even smaller the year before.
You have to appreciate for an officer to be in the position they're in. One thing we want to make sure is they're safe and the public is safe. So when they're put in a position where they're faced with an issue or a situation of death or grievous bodily harm, we want them to rely on their training and do what they need to do to resolve the situation as safely as they can.
We've been to a lot of these, it seems, over the last couple of years, and when ASIRT gets involved, there seems to be a lot more secrecy, but tonight you seem to be quite open, and to me it seems that this isn't the norm when ASIRT gets involved.
You know, when ASIRT gets involved, I mean, we talk to ASIRT before we'll do our communications, and we don't always agree on what we say, but I think we have to be very respectful of the fact that these investigations require, for public confidence, require us to sort of limit what we say in terms of the actual details of the event. To me, I'm just more concerned about the overall trending in the city, the overall crime trending, and the things that we're running up against on a nightly basis.
But my point is, you've been a little forthcoming tonight. Like you've said more than most times. Why is that?
It's necessary. I believe in this day and age it's necessary that we are open with the public, that we share information to, you know, instill confidence in the city and the service that when these things happen, we're not going to leave it unsaid. It's just that, you know, we do work closely with ASIRT to make sure we respect their investigative integrity.
A lot of shaking up people in Dover tonight. Will there be any interaction out of District 4 or officers talking to the neighbors maybe to let them know what happened or that kind of thing?
Yeah, we get this quite a bit in communities where our community liaison officers will be out talking to community groups or talking to people who are concerned. There's always opportunities for us to help them work through these.
It's kind of seemed like criminals becoming more desperate. Should like the citizens of Calgary be a little bit more vigilant, not necessarily scared, but more vigilant that situations like this might arise? Because like another thing was that after this situation happened, they had to officers had to put people back in their homes, keep them.
Well, I mean, you can appreciate lots of these on their own merits. Lots of these calls have variables to them. If we don't know where everybody is, we're not quite sure how many offenders are involved. We just want to make sure nobody gets hurt or gets in between something like this. I mean, in this case, I think we were pretty comfortable with the number of offenders and what we had to deal with, so we were okay in that one.
But as should the citizens be more vigilant? It almost seems like criminals are becoming more desperate and going into situations that they wouldn't go to before.
You know what, with drug addiction and some of these new powerful drugs, it's not like people who are committing these crimes are making great decisions, obviously. So the brazenness of the criminals, like when they're targeting us, when they're doing things to put the community at harm, that's what the police are for, to try to get in front of those things. It's not that we want the community to be more vigilant, but I think they have to be aware that these things can happen. If they happen, we want to make sure everybody's safe. But that's, again, to call the police and let us manage these things. And more often than not, we manage them very well. I mean, the numbers that we get people into custody safely or get people the care they need in those moments is enormous on a day-to-day basis. Just every once in a while, you'll see this kind of chaos occurs.
Just to be clear, you weren't chasing this vehicle. It was just being observed by HAWC overhead. Is that right?
Yeah, that'll come up out of the ASIRT investigation, but we were in the area and were trying to manage the situation when all this started.